Good day, Joe, and welcome. Purpose and the reason for this union and this conversation is to discuss two great men that have gone good time, and not just our local heroes, but our heroes alike. This is the autobiography of a man, and this will be the first time that we have actually recorded friends, Black Mom friend. And first of all, thank you all for everything that you've done. We normally just talk about legacy after, but let's talk about legacy currently. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and I want you guys to introduce yourselves.
Go ahead, Asa.
My name is Asa Suber Jr. The best way for me to say this is I'm a truly one of the baby boomers. I was born 10 months after the World War II ended. So I know my dad was very anxious to get home and do whatever he needed to do. But I'm just glad to be here. I'm currently married with 3 children and 3 grandchildren currently. My wife is from Winsboro, South Carolina, and my main growth was in Columbia, South Carolina.
My name is Gary Bell. I was born here in Columbia. And my wife is Blondie C. Bell. She's from Hardyville, South Carolina. And I met her at South Carolina State University, which was South Carolina State College there at that time. I have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. And like I said, I was born and raised here in Columbia, South Carolina.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for the introduction. I thank you again. You're going to hear me say thank you again and again. But as friends and lifelong friends, who did you guys first meet?
Well, as I recall, we met at Carvey Elementary School. I didn't know Asa came. Asa told me he came there in the 2nd grade. I didn't know that he'd come in the 2nd grade. Sometimes as you get older, you just think that you meet somebody, you just think you've known them basically all your life. So, but we met at Carvey Elementary School, went through junior high school and high school together.
Any exciting time, Sue?
The exact time?
Exciting time.
Oh, it was exciting. When I left Waverly after 1 year, but I knew most of my friends were at Carver at the time. So when I transferred over to Carver, I just fell in with the remainder of the crowd, and it was just like I had been there the entire time. But Gary's absolutely correct. We met there. We went through junior high school together. And then we ended up at C.A. Johnson High School at the same time, where we did a number of activities together, mainly football. Gary tried to catch the ball, and I tried to run the ball. So, we've known each other for a long time.
So you mentioned C.A. Johnson. Was that that was the school after Washington, Booker Washington High School?
Booker Washington High School is a little older than C.A. Johnson is. In Columbia, there were only 2 predominantly black schools, and Booker T. Washington was one, and C.A. Johnson, which was known as the Institution on the Hill, was the other school. So those were the predominantly black schools that existed at that particular time here in Columbia.
And just let me say this right here. Asa said that we did a lot of things together. We played football together. I didn't attend, well, let me put it this way. Through junior high school, I think I was in some classes with Asa. When we got to C.A. Johnson, I no longer took classes with Asa. The reason being is that I stayed at W.A. Perry for another year because I think went to 7th and 8th grade, and I stayed through ninth grade. They left and went to C.A. Johnson, and they went from 9th through 12th grade. And somehow our curriculums or our classes then got split up. So he was in a more advanced class than I was, because they were smart.
Stayed through the ninth grade. I stayed at Parrott. You stayed grade? Through ninth grade, yeah. Oh, okay. Our class was the first one to graduate from W. Parrott. I stayed. I was a little disappointed because I thought most of the guys that went over to C.A. Johnson was considered the cream of the crop, But W. Parrott was a good experience, excellent experience. Good teachers. We just buried one shortly, Kay Patterson.
Yeah.
King Jeff Cole. I mean, we had great teachers, caring teachers, but I did stay through the ninth grade at W. Parrott.
But and let me pick up on something. He was saying caring teachers. I think that was the hallmark of our school. I'm certain. Well, I know at C.A. Johnson, and I'm certain it was at Booker T. Washington also. But we had teachers who cared about us,
Amen.
who wanted us to succeed, who made us succeed, and who pushed us to our limits. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was, well, I'm not going to call it a name, but there was one guy in our class, the teacher did not let him march or graduate with us, not because he failed the course, but because he didn't attend enough classes.
That's right.
Okay, he passed the course, but he didn't attend enough classes, so she made him come back and go back to through summer school?
Summer school.
Yep, summer school before he graduated. So those were the times there. And then I tell folks all the time, I don't. People are going to hear this, and I don't know what they're going to think, and I really don't care what they think, but I'm going to say it anyway. People talk about integration. I tell them all the time, I didn't want to go to school with white folks. What I wanted were the new books that they gave out. I got tired of looking at books from Drill and A.C. Floor and all these used books when they got the new books. Yeah. Okay? When they integrated the schools, it was after we graduated. They took the best teachers from C.A. Johnson. I don't know, I can't speak for Booker Washington, but they took the best teachers from C.A. Johnson and put them in the white schools.
And to add to that, those teachers gave even those students the same type of attention that they gave to us. They showed no difference whatsoever. So, they were for real. Those teachers were sincere. They didn't make a lot of money, but at that time, we thought they were on top of the world. But those were caring, concerned teachers that I will always remember. And if it had not been for them, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Nor would I. I tell you how good C.A. Johnson was back then. C.A. Johnson had 4 foreign languages when we were at this school. Yeah. They had Latin, Spanish, German, and French.
That's right.
4 foreign languages. I don't know if any other school here, I can't speak for the white schools, I don't know what they had down at Booker Washington, but 4 foreign languages we could take while we were at C.A. Johnson. I took German.
I took Spanish.
I always say I could sprechen Sie Deutsch. Speak a little German. That's about all I can do now, too. Speak a little German.
I took Spanish and Latin, but Latin lasted about 3 weeks and 4 days. I decided it was something else I wanted to do other than study Latin. But yeah, he's absolutely correct. Not only did we have the foreign languages, we also had the top sciences as well. Yeah, because we even had the physics. We had chemistry 1 and 2.
Yep.
So it was not a lack of not being able to receive that which we needed. It was just a matter of applying yourself.
We, and in addition to that, we talk about academic. we also had a championship football team.
And track team.
And well, I didn't run track. Asa ran track. Now, Asa was one of the fastest guys in went to C.A. Johnson during that time. But Asa ran track. I did not run track. All I did, I swam during the summer, but I was just on the city swim team. But we played football together, and we were on. We had the. In fact, did we have the last championship team to C.A. Johnson?
We did.
Back in '63. We graduated in '64. '63 was the last championship team that C.A.
Still
Johnson.
got my jacket.
That's right. That's right.
Well, first of all, thank you for that information and that historical landmark. Because we talk about Washington and we also talk about C.A. Johnson. Now I know it as the institution on the hill. And you also discuss Kay Patterson and some of the other educators that were there. And we talk about separate but equal and the importance of that. We talk about C.A. Johnson and what I would love to know, once you matriculated through C.A. Johnson and it prepared you, where did you go into the world? College, military? And thank you for your search out the bill.
Well, when I it's interesting. When I graduated from C.A. Johnson, I thought I was sitting on top of the world because I got a scholarship from C.A. Johnson. I've forgotten who it was from. It may have been from PTA or something, but I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. You know how much it was? $50 a year. That's what the scholarship was. It was $50 per year. And I remember I had to write back to C.A. Johnson to have him to send the money. I went to South Carolina State. Had to write back to C.A. Johnson to have him to send the $50 down to South Carolina State. In fact, I got in touch with Coach Bowden and asked him, who was my high school football coach, asked him to intercede, make sure they sent the $50 down to South Carolina State. My daddy was thrilled. He didn't have to pay another $50 down there. But I went to South Carolina State, and we graduated in '64. I went down there in the fall of '64. Graduated in '68. Was commissioned second lieutenant in the Army. Before I went in the Army, I went to St. Louis. I worked up there for 6 months, and then I went in the Army. And what was interesting about the Army at the time and the ROTC, I was in advanced ROTC, is that we knew when we went into advanced ROTC, we knew we were going to Vietnam. There was no question about it, because we had to pick three branches of the service. And in the Army, three, and one of them had to be a combat arms. The combat arms are Signal Corps, engineer, infantry, armor, and artillery. And so, but we were told that we don't care whether you pick them first, second, or third, whichever combat arm you pick, that's the one you're going to get. And that's the one I picked, engineer. And I got it. I picked it at fourth. I was an accounting major. I was a math major and accounting minor. I said, man, I'm fit to go right into finance in the Army. The Army didn't think so. I put down engineer, and that's what I got, combat engineer. And then I graduated in '68 and went to Fort Belvoir, Fort Hood, and bam, next orders I got was the Republic of Vietnam. Asen went to where'd you go to undergrad? Undergrad.
Oh, undergrad. I decided I wanted to leave home. I was young, crazy, had all these different ideas. But I was in a track meet down at, I can't remember the name of the stadium down there now, the Dre and all of them ran that. But anyway, I was in a track meet, and the coach from Allen University was there. And he came over to me, he says, have you ever thought about coming to Allen? No, well, I hadn't given it any thought. That was the farthest thing from my mind. I wanted to leave home. I was looking at schools like Purdue and Indiana and this sort of thing, because in my mind, I wanted to go into medicine, is what I thought. Everybody knew what I was going to do but me. I was the only one who did not know what he wanted to do. But anyway, I went out and visited Indiana State in Terre Haute, Indiana. Loved the school, loved it. But I had never seen so much white snow and white people in all my days. So I decided that I was going to give Allen University a call. And his name was Evans, Coach Evans. And he said, well, AC, we're not sure we still have that scholarship. I said, well, Coach, I can't afford to pay. I said, my parents cannot afford to send me to school. So if you don't have a scholarship, I'm going to have to find something else to do. He said, well, now hold off. I think we can come up with something. Would you be willing to do work study along with a partial scholarship? I said, sure. Won't be no problem for me. So sure enough, I accepted what little they had to give me at Allen University. And let me say this about Allen. When at Allen, I was well prepared. There was a subject that I'll never forget, kinesiology. I studied kinesiology like it was water and milk. I loved it. I had an opportunity to go to Duke University that summer. What was the class they wanted me to study? Was kinesiology. Out of all of those students, I was the only one that really knew much at all about kinesiology, and I felt good. But Allen prepared me. They prepared me well. And even though they were small and a little school on the hill, we got so much from that school. I played with some excellent guys, Rock Davis that played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Etney that kicked for Philadelphia Eagles, just great guys that sort of took me under their wings. Charles Bryant that played for the Atlanta Falcons, didn't even know what a football post was until he ran into one because he grew up in the country. He didn't know anything about anything. But all of this took place at Little Allen University. And I entered there. I finished on time in 1968. Upon completing there, I decided that I wanted to go on to school, but I ended up accepting an assignment in the Peace Corps. And I was assigned to Turkey, is where I was assigned to go. At that time, I was not thinking about family, marriage, or anything of that sort at all. But I decided once I got to the Big Island to do my training, that the Peace Corps was not for me, not at all. During that time, the 60s, it was very political. And I decided that I just didn't want any parts of it. So I left, came back home, and I ended up studying British literature at Furman University, of all courses. But that's sort of my little background from there, as far as education was concerned on the undergraduate level. But we did. I finished on time. That's also where I pledged my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity is where I pledged, and just had a great time. The one thing about me, it started out with 8 of us, but I was the only one that went over. Strong man, just a strong man.
And ever since then, he's wished that he pledged Q, pledged the mayor. But anyway, I'm not going to hold that against my friend Ace. Look, it's interesting. Ace talked about some of the courses that he took down took at Allen. I was I was a math major and a minor in accounting. Okay, the best course that I took at South Carolina State was genetics, and it was taught by Dr. Roach. And it was a 2-hour course, and it was just a fascinating course. It was the precursor to DNA and all that kind of stuff. You get a dominant blue-eyed guy, a dominant blue eyes, and a recessive gene, and all this, and how, the probability of the children coming out blue-eyed or brown-eyed or whatever, and it was just fascinating. And I know I used to go back and when I took that course, I used to tell them I was dating my wife at the time, Blondie, and I go back and we talk, And I said, yeah, you know, if I had brown eyes and you had brown eyes and mine was dominant and yours was dominant, and the possibility of our children coming out with brown eyes is this, that, and the other. And it was, like I said, it was just fascinating. But the Army had other plans for me. So I went to work up in St. Louis for 6 months, and then I went into service. Went to Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Then I went to Fort Hood, Texas, and then, like I said earlier, they sent me over the water to Vietnam, and that was interesting also, because I remember distinctly one of the very first heated discussions that I had in Vietnam was with the first sergeant. And the first sergeant, they lived on one side of the hooch, and we stood on this side, so we had a common area where, you come and gather and all that. And we were sitting there one night, and I made the statement. I said, I don't even know why I'm over here in Vietnam. And he said, well, we're over here to fight communism and to stop the spread of communism and all that. And I said, that's interesting. I'm from South Carolina. There are certain places in South Carolina that I can't even go to eat. And so I'm going to stop the spread of communism and do all those things. Y'all talking about freedom. And he really got upset with me. And I'm not going to tell you exactly what he said, but basically what he said was, sir, if you don't like it, just get out. Just get out of the States. I said, no, I'm not going to get out of the States. They sent me over here. I want to go back to the States. I do want to go back. But let's not fool ourselves about why we're over here and what we're fighting for. Now, I'm patriotic. Don't get me wrong. I'm very patriotic. I'm a proud Vietnam veteran. My son is in the Air Force. He's the Major General in the Air Force. He went to the Air Force Academy. I taught him into going to the Air Force Academy. All right? So we're a patriotic family. My oldest brother, he was in the Air Force. He was a major in the Air Force. So, those are some of the things that I encountered in my life that I don't know. I just had to say that.
And we want to have this conversation also about the politics. And Dr. Silver, I heard you say the politics change. And that's the reason it brought you back. And Brother Bell chimed in the significance of politics in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. With the state of affairs, do you see politics playing or having similarities of then to now, where it guides us as a people to make choices that are life changers?
That's an interesting question. I from my perspective, I think, first of all, I think you've got to know yourself. You've got to have certain beliefs. And I strongly believe if you're going to stand, know why you're standing. If you're not going to stand, know why you're not standing. Politics in today's time, to me, is totally different than what it was then, primarily because of the individuals involved. Now, yes, I saw a whole different world when I attempted to go into the Peace Corps. But right here in Columbia, after leaving the school system where I taught for 10 years and served as assistant principal and principal, my last assignment was at Dreer High School. I accepted the position at Allied Signal at that time. Allied Chemical was the name at that time. One of the first blacks to be in that particular position. There was still a restroom in that building that said colored only. And at that particular time, that was like, 1976, 1977, when I went there. But I have said to so many persons, Allied was good to me because of the way they treated me. Yes, I gave them a lot, but then look what I was able to reap from them and because of their relationship with me. I may have been the first or the only one, but I was respected. I was in labor management. I didn't think there was anybody that knew labor better than I did, and I'm not an attorney. But from that perspective, I learned an awful lot. They respected me, I respected them, and I was able to learn from that as we moved through all of those particular times. And after some 30 years, I can tell you there, it was not the same when I left as it was when I arrived. 1 year in particular, I was called in because at that time I was working in personnel. And I was given a reprimand because I had hired 900 blacks that 1 year. In other words, Super, that was too many. You can't do that. In other words, they was looking at a quota. I wasn't looking at a quota. I was looking at people who needed jobs. I was looking at people who was asking to be hired. I was looking at people who wanted to work. Now, I will be the first to tell you, if you wasn't willing to work, come to work, be on time, I'd be the first to walk you out the door. The first to walk you out the door. I will hold your hand and walk you out. But you wanted people that was going to be devoted. So when you talk about this thing with politics, to me, it's more than just who's the president, what association you may be with, Democrat, Republican. It's a lot more than that goes into it. And if we don't understand that particular role, you're just not going to make it. But you have got to understand where you are, who you are, and from whence you come and where you're going. And I think that is most important. So I don't look at politics as so many may look at it, as being the political format that you may be on or you may be taking at this particular time. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing to change anything? You know, are you willing to make a statement? Are you willing to stand? Or are you just going with the flow? And water will flow the way it wants to flow if you don't get in there and put something to stop it from flowing the way it shouldn't flow. So, you know, I guess I'm a little different than some when it comes to that word politics, but I look at it totally differently. I can say that, yes, I may have been the first in many situations. I may have been the only one in many situations, but that did not stop me from taking a stand and doing what I needed to do to make sure the word got out and did what I was supposed to do to try and make it a lot better.
Well, with me, when it comes to politics, within the last, I say, 15 years, I've really started looking at politics. But what I recall prior to that was that the politicians, they may be Democrat, Republicans, whatever, and I didn't look at them as a political, whether Democrats or Republicans. I looked at what they did, and they had America first, and then they had their different what's the word? Associations. Yeah, they put that second. Now, but politicians, they're just worried about themselves. They don't, in my opinion, they don't put America first. They put their political party first, and that's what upsets me more than anything else. That they put their political party first, and then they say, and put themselves in the political party first, and then they put, America second. In my opinion.
Yeah, they don't care about anything but
self-preservation.
Well, I'm a pivot. I'm gonna make a hard pivot, and one thing we didn't discuss: the churches you attended, from youth to now. And you know, we talk about politics, but let's talk about pray. 'Cause I know both of y'all, y'all come from a very interesting background, but the importance of church. Let's go ahead and have that conversation.
My church, I was born and raised. I was raised at Wesley United Methodist Church. That church is on the corner of Barnwell and Gervais. And you're coming up the hill from Hardin Street, right across from the Firestone tire station. And one of the things I remember about that church, number one, my mother, and I lived in Allen Benedict Court. Okay. We used to have to walk from Allen Benedict Court, my brother, my sister, and I. We had to walk from Allen Benedict Court up to Wesley United Methodist Church for Sunday school. But it was always a welcoming church. It was always a church that was very benevolent. It was always a friendly church. And to this day, it is still that type of church. That church has impacted me and made an impact on me that for the rest of my life. So I love that church. I love it now. I loved it then, and I love it now. And let me throw this right here. And we have a magnificent preacher, Reverend Tiffany Nolan Boykin. You ought to come in here. She is dynamic.
Well, I grew up and all I've known was Baptist. My mom and my dad both were heavily involved in the church. Even when Dad was away and was not home with us, Mom made sure that we went to some church. My first church in Columbia that I can remember was Second Nazareth, with Reverend Bowman at that particular time, down off of Elmwood. And after being there as a small child, Gary grew up in Allen Benedict Court. I grew up in Saxon Homes. So we're both the product of projects, so to speak. But it wasn't a project for us. It was home. And that's all we knew. Nobody knew anything about projects or being poor. So as far as the church was concerned for me, from Second Nazareth, I ended up at St. Paul Baptist Church on North Main. They used to say it was the only black church on Main Street in Columbia. And that's pretty much where I was nurtured. That's where I grew. That's also where I was ordained as a deacon under my father. That's also the same church where I started teaching adult Sunday school at the age of 14. And I still teach adult Sunday school. I now, and for the last 44 years, I've been at Brooklyn Baptist Church in West Columbia with Dr. Charles B. Jackson Sr. and his son now, Charles Jackson Jr., who is serving as co-pastors there. I served as his chairman of deacons for 30 years, and I sat down 2 years ago, and I decided to retire. I didn't think there was anything else that I could offer. God had been very, very good to me during that time. The church, let me back up and say this. The church then and the church as it is today is totally different. It is totally different. St. Paul had probably a good 200, 300 members. Now I sit in a church with almost 11,000 members. It's a way to get away. People can get away from you. Before becoming chairman of deacons, I was clerk. I knew everyone in Brooklyn Baptist Church by name. I can't do that anymore. I cannot do that anymore. Watch night services, we had some 40 persons to join. I couldn't tell you who they were than the man in the moon, because they're not introduced like they used to be within the old church. There are a lot of things that have changed. Gary made mention of where he is and how Wesley has maintained itself over the years. Well, I can tell you there's been a lot of changes in a church like Brooklyn Baptist. A lot of changes. My Sunday school class, when I first got to Brooklyn, we had 6 members in the adult class there. I now have 300 members. Of those 300, I only have like maybe 200 that actually attend, but we do it two ways. Some sit in front of me in an in-house situation, and the others are on a screen zooming in. The Zoom participants, it's just like them being where they are. When I say the churches have changed, one of the main things that has changed, people are not coming to church anymore. They now realize that they can stay home. They don't have to wash, iron, clean clothes, or anything to come to church. So I'll stay at church and worship. And that is a thing that is going on that a lot of people think is very, very prevalent, very good in today's time. I don't. I do not. I will admit that during the COVID period, when I had to teach from my home, I got very comfortable. I got extremely comfortable, but I found out it was not the same thing as sitting in front of them. But make a long story short, church has always been a part of my life, always been a part of my life. And even as an adult, when I moved away from home on my own, because I said staying in church from sun up to sundown, I ain't doing that no more. No, that ain't gonna happen. Well, I found myself glad to stay in church from sun up to sundown. Kept me out of trouble and a lot of other things. But we had to grow. I thank God for two God-fearing parents. That was the foundation and the backbone of us. I'm the oldest of 6. There's only 4 of us left now. But if it had not been for my mom and dad setting the tone, paving the way, I wouldn't be here. I would not be here. People say, who were your mentors? My parents were my mentors. That's where it started. And neither one of them had a high school education. But I tell everyone, my dad had more common sense than the average Joe Blow. And mother could do, it wasn't anything that mom could not make happen, anything. So, having said all of that, I thank God for the parents. I thank God for church, because that was something that was just embedded in us, that we had to. First time I was given some money to put in church, I went across the street to the store. I bought me some bubble gum, some candy, and let me tell you, that was the worst licking I've ever gotten in my life. I was glad to put my money in church after that, okay? So, yes, the church is a strong foundation, always has been, and until this day, I think it always will be when it comes to my life.
One of the things that Asa was talking about, I look at what I've done in my life and how I've taken those things to help impact what goes on in church. For instance, Asa was talking about him, being the deacon and all that. We don't have deacons in the United Methodist. Okay, but I'm a certified public accountant. I've taken my life experiences, my professional experiences, and I've put them in devoted them to leadership in the church. I've been the finance committee chair PPRC, that's the Pastor Parish Relation Committee. We're dealing with folks and all that. The chairman of the study committee. I've been the treasurer. And those things, I found that some of the same issues that we experience in your professional life, you experience in our church. Okay. Now you said your father had a lot of common sense, and I'm not disputing that. Okay, but it reminded me of something. There was a gentleman in my church named Mr. Snipe. We were sitting down one day, and he told me, he said, Gary, you know what? Common sense would beat education 100% of the time. And I've always remembered that. I got a doctor's degree and all that, the CPA and all that, but he's absolutely right. Common sense would beat education 100% of the time. And I just thought that was a profound statement, and I've always remembered that. I wish you'd have told me that earlier. And that way, I think Mr. Stites still lived to be about in his 90s. So when he told me that, I mean, he may have been in his 80s. We were sitting down talking, and that's when he told me that. But church has has an impact on my life. I told my grandkids just this when they were home for Christmas. I said, I pray for y'all every night. But what I want you to do, I say a general prayer, but what I want you to do, I want you to let me know what you want me to pray for you. Because prayers can't be answered unless they're prayed. Prayers can't be answered unless they're prayed. Now that's Steiner. Again, that's from a poem that I can't remember the author right now. It's not my original word, but I've always remembered it. So church has always had an impact on my life.
We talk about politics. We talked about church. Looking at it, those core principles, be it Methodist, Baptist, and knowing that both of you came out, you said you came out of the projects, but at the same time, the products that they produce and the intimacy of that relationship, the blended family, those core values that were practiced in church that prepared you for multiple organizations to assist when and where you came. And I'm going to go ahead and give liberty to you, gentlemen, to talk about the organizations that you joined that are both faith-driven, founded on God's principles of service. And you both did it in your undergrad, and we're going to go ahead and cover your fraternities right now, because all of those names pour into your home, church. So let's go ahead and talk about fraternity.
Well, it's interesting. When I got to South Carolina State, I did not know what a fraternity was. I did not know of any fraternity whatsoever. And what impacted me at South Carolina State was in November of my freshman year, and I was on the swimming team, and I was coming out of swimming practice, and I saw that's when the Qs did the Death March.
Mm-hmm.
They had 20 strong doing the Death March, and I came out of Duke's Gymnasium, and I was on my way to the dining hall to eat dinner or supper or whatever it was, and I saw these folks, and I asked this guy, I said, "What is that?" He said, "That's a fraternity." I said, "What's a fraternity?" He explained to me and all that. I said, "What are they doing?" He said, "That's the Death March." And I watched it a little bit, and then I left to go and eat. Found out the next semester my brother was pledging Q, and then the following semester I pledged Q. And then I came home, and believe it or not, I realized that my daddy was not in the fraternity. Okay, you were talking about your daddy didn't graduate. I can't remember. You said he graduated from high school. He didn't graduate.
He never.
I know my daddy had an 11th grade education. Okay,
Never failed.
Okay, he was a barber. But I came home, and I started looking around, and all the men that I admired, well, not all of them, a lot of the men that I admired were Qs. Dr. Cooper, Charles Bowden, Mr. Fair, who's my godfather, James Payne. I looked around, and there were all these Qs. And like I said, I pledged the second semester of my freshman year, went over the second semester of my sophomore year, and it has impacted my life. It's done a lot of things for me. Number one of the things, we do a lot of stuff in the community. We have Achievement Week. We have, I can't even name, my mind is getting kind of drawing a blank right now, but we do all these things in the community. I'm active in the 6th district. I'm active with our chapter, with the chapter Omicron Phi. And I found that I've been a lot of places. When I left Fort Belvoir, I told you I went out to Fort Hood. You know, one of the first things I did, found out what the Qs were. Before I even went to Fort Hood, I was up in St. Louis. You know, one of the first things I did, what the Qs were. Well, who's the chapter up there? So it always helped me to get acclimated in the community, and then we just kind of go from there. So and I've been in the fraternity this year. I would have been in the fraternity 60 years. I went over in 1965, and this right here is 2025. 60 years, a Q. I know you wish you could say the same thing, but that's okay.
I understand.
I didn't know AZ was a Kappa until later on in life, but I forgave him.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah, I know you did. Yeah, this with us, this goes on all the time. But anyway,
Gary has made some strong points because, believe it or not, the fraternity is primarily service. The service. I was approached by every fraternity there was when I was at Allen, but I did not have fraternity on my mind. It just wasn't appealing to me at all. And I would watch, and they had some strong lines. And I saw the Qs do the death march. I saw the Kappas with their canes. I saw them Alphas. And then I saw those Sigma. And then I said, no, it's got to be one or the other. It's going to either be Kappa or it's going to be Q. And I say that very quietly. But I had two young men, and Gary, they're all our friends. Buster Canty, Willie Canty, and David Whaley, Dr. David Whaley, who's no longer with us. They came to me, approached me, they said, AC, I know these other fraternities are after you, but man, you just belong with us. And I said, well, I'll let you know in 2 years. And that's just how long it took me to make my mind up, because I was not interested in pledging in the fraternity. Well, after pledging at Allen and doing Kappa, I ended up doing graduate work at Florida State University, where I also belonged to two other fraternities. They were both business fraternities that I belonged to. In each one of them, service is the key. Service is the key. I would not trade my experiences with the HBCUs and their fraternities at all, because, see, I've been able to see both sides. Because the two fraternities at Florida State, I'm the only minority. I was at that time, 1975. I don't know what they have now, because I really don't participate anymore with them. But I have an awful lot of respect for HBCUs and those fraternities and sororities. They're just different. And they bring about a whole different atmosphere when it comes to giving back. And I think that is so very important. So yeah, the fraternities mean a lot to me. I base a lot, as Gary indicated, my life work on what happened in my fraternity and what we've been able to do. And I pray that I'll still be able to do that. I'm much younger than Gary. So therefore, I haven't been in my fraternity for 62 years. I've only been in it for 50 years. No, now it will be 54 years that I've been in the fraternity. So yeah, it's all strong. It means a lot. And I'm very happy that I made up my mind to do it while I was in undergraduate school.
And I'm certain Ace could probably go back. I know there are some fraternity brothers that went over with me, and I mean, we keep up with each other to this date. Sure. I mean, like yesterday, I got a text message from one down in Florida, and we had 11 on our line. 3 of them are gone now, but the ones that I don't keep up with all of them, but the ones that I do keep up with, we go back a long way, and we just know, know what each other's thinking, and always calling each other every now and then. If there's one thing I want to say, is to tell people, if you're thinking about, and this comes from the heart, and because I'm 78, Ace, you're 78 too, right?
Don't worry.
Okay. But anyway, I just want to say this right here. When you're thinking about somebody at our age, and you're thinking about you want to call them, call them. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till next week, because next week may never come, either for you or for them. There have been times when I decided, hey, I'm gonna call this person right here, and I waited. Bam, she'll go.
Happen.
So, but anyway, back to fraternities. It lifelong friends, and then the ones that I've met subsequent to 1965, 66 when I went over. They're good people, like Derek Suba, Doc Over, anyway. I had to put that in Ace. Derek Suba just happened to be Ace's son, and for those who don't. But I'm going to say this right. Ace and I, we really go back a long way. When Ace had his 60th birthday.
Yeah.
His wife called me and asked me would I say a few words about Ace. And really, I didn't know Ace's wife at the time. Okay, and I wondered myself. I said, well, why did she call me? I wonder.
I did too.
And I tell you what, that was. I think I gave a wonderful rendition of Ace and how I knew him and how close we were, because I talked about how fast he was in football. He was so fast, ladies and gentlemen, that he could flip a light switch and be in bed before the lights go out, before it got dark.
Yeah, he did tell them that.
I'm gonna stood up.
You need.
Dora, you mentioned something else that I just want to say. We talked about the class of C.A. Johnson class of 1964. And one of the things I know you asked us before we started talking about Charles Bowden, and he is probably, he is the most well-known graduate of C.A. Johnson High School, and definitely in our class, okay? But I will tell you this, that Charles played football, and there was a rumor at one time that Charles threw the winning touchdown pass in the championship game. And Charles said that he had thrown that pass to me. Well, I talked to Charles after I heard that. And I asked Charles, I said, Charles, I heard that you had thrown a touchdown pass to me in the winning pass in the championship game. And Charles, I said, that's not true. So Charles said, well, it wasn't you that I threw the touchdown pass to? I said, no, Charles, I don't think you threw the winning touchdown pass at all. Now, I say that because whoever's listening, some of the guys who are listening to that tape, they know that I said that to Charles. And if Charles ever listens to this, you know that I did say that to him. But we're still close.
Yeah.
And that class, 1964, from C.A. Johnson High School, is still some of my very dear friends. I mean, I got dear friends from that class, my fraternity, my college class, but we go back a long way. You know, when you start talking about folks from 1964. In fact, I'll just say this right here. I know that when I was in high school, my nickname was Breeze, Breeze. So if I hear somebody say, "Hey, Breeze," I just automatically know that they're from high school.
They're from high school.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
That intimacy that was there, and we keep going back to the same place where you read her, and this is gonna springboard into something else, and you can relate it from then to now, and that's the brotherhood of man, and the importance that it has when it comes to us knowing each other, having an intimate relationship both in church, fraternity, and in our neighborhoods, in our communities. So if you can expound on that question, and then we'll keep on down the road. But I just wanted you to.
You know, Doyle, one of the things that they say, and one of the old proverbs, is that it takes a village to raise a child. Okay? Now, with us, that's so true. When I grew up in Allen Benedict Court, if Miss Pauline saw me doing something, it was just like my mom and dad see me.
That's right.
If the guy the blind guy who had a canteen right there in Allen Benedict Court, I can't think of his name. If we said something to him, or about his disability or something that was negative, my dad and mom, they would tear me up. It took a village to raise a child. I mean, and that village was all in Saxon Home, W. Perry, Allen Benedict Court,
Gonzalez.
Gonzalez. Yeah, all you had to do. I remember something I did at C.A. Johnson one day, and Mr. Sanders took me down in the basement to give me three or four smacks, okay, on my rear end with a belt. I said, "Look here, I'll take 5. I'll take 6. Just don't tell my daddy.
Tell my daddy.
Just don't tell my daddy. I'll take whatever you do. I'll take it. Just don't tell my daddy." Because I didn't want my daddy to know about it. So it gets back to that camaraderie, that village. I respected those folks. They respected me. They helped raise me. I can't call all their names, but I knew that they were there, and I was always on the lookout for, hey, whenever you're doing something, somebody's seeing you. Just like now, whenever you do something, somebody sees you. But if that's somebody who knew our parents would find out about it. And in our neighborhood, you got to remember, we didn't associate with a bunch of white folks anyway. So it was all black folks. And in the black community, everybody knew everybody.
Everybody knew everybody.
Everybody knew everybody, so.
Yeah. Well, I guess I can't do anything but piggyback Gary, because Saxon Holmes was the same way. What I will say that the only thing that divided Saxon Home and Allen Benedict Court was Reed Street. That's the only thing that separated the two. But, as I said earlier, we never used the term projects or poor folks. That was home. That's where we developed. That's where everyone knew everybody. And Gary's so right. All you had to do was make one mistake, just one, but you better pray your mom and dad did not get the word that you had done it, And I had some pretty nosy people in Saxon Home. Miss Suba, did you know that AC Jr. did such and such and such and such? And I'm going, well, you had to tell them. You don't have to tell them. But he's right. There are a lot of men that we looked up to that, especially when I got to school and I saw some of the male figures, I knew there were some that I would love to model them. There are others I didn't want any parts of. But it helped me make decisions that I normally would never have made. So as far as manhood is concerned, life is short. Life is very short. And what you put into it is what you get out of it. And who you put in with you is going to determine your destiny. And I'll always believe that. So be wise, as I would say to people. Pick and choose those that you know can help you. There's no sense in picking someone that's going to get in the ditch with you and can't help you get out of it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But during that time, yes, we had plenty of male figures that we could look up to and model ourselves after, because we knew that they were on the right track and we wanted to be like them as much as possible, so.
And they had our best interests at heart.
We had our what?
I said they had our best.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They had our best interests at heart.
I thought you said something else like you normally would.
But Joey, I would say I continuously thank you during this momentous occasion, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna enter into the last segment. We talked about our history, we talked about fraternity, we talked about our churches, we talked about our faith, we talked about our families. All leading up to this point, we're talking about our legacy, and you are living legends, and I thank you for doing what you do. Not many times do we recognize our heroes that are in our house, that make it a home. The people that we see at church and the people that we see in our fraternities, the young men, and we know that have helped reared and steered the way. In our fraternity, we call it bridge builders. In my house, we call them ancestors. So I do thank you. But we're going to go ahead and move into one of the most important parts of this interview, and I want you to give a message to those that are coming behind you, that fair-haired youth that will come this way. This is mainly for them, so that they can see at least a segment of this and it will change their lives.
Wow. Well, if I had to leave a message, I think it would piggyback something that I said to a group I was speaking to not long ago. It really doesn't matter where you start, but where you end up is so important. So I say that to say, have a plan. Know how you're going to get there. You know it's going to be rough along the way. But, everyone doesn't come from a total family the way we did, mom and dad in the house at the same time. But that should not determine your outcome. You can make it without worrying about the negatives on the beginning end. Just concentrate on the positives that will be on the end, because that's where you want to go. That's where you want to head. And that's what you would like to do. God has been very good to AC. There's no doubt about it. I've ended up with some things that I never even thought. I mean, Gary and I both are on the Wall of Fame. I never thought I'd have my picture on the Wall of Fame, No, I thought they used my pictures to get rid of roaches and rats or something, not put it on the Wall of Fame, But we are there, and we're there for a reason. And I would like for those who come by and see, and they just read a little caption of what we may have tried to do. Because, see, I don't feel like I've done anything at all. People say I have, but I don't see it the same way they see it. I was just trying to be the best that I could be. And I had to be, because mom and dad wasn't going to let it be any other way. So I had to put forth the effort. So to me, it doesn't matter where you start, but where you end up, I think is most important. So find a way to get there and do it the right way.
Well, and that's a very good question that you asked and you wanted us to reflect on. And several things come to my mind. Number one, I'm going to tell you some of the things that I am proud of what I've done. Okay, and it's not, and they are. I can think of about 5, 6 people, just right off the top of my head, that have come to me and asked me for advice, and I said, and they were talking about professional advice. Where should I go to? What should I major in? How should I want to become a CPA? What track I should take? And those type things. And I've counseled them, and they followed my instructions. But most importantly, they have succeeded. And I'm just proud that they've done it. And I'll just call one name because he's familiar. Well, you, Doyle, and you, Derek, know it. Eduardo Barbie, our fraternity brother. His future father-in-law at the time came to me and then wanted me to hire him. Well, he didn't want me to hire him. He wanted me to talk to him when he graduated from Wild. And the kid came up there and sat in my office, and I sat up there. I said, do you really want to work now? He said, yeah, no. I said, you don't need to work. You need to go back to school to get a master's degree because everybody got a BS degree. I didn't say BS at the time. I did say BS, but I didn't do Bachelor of Science. I said, so let's get you into grad school. So we got him into grad school. And then I said, now, you know what you need to do? You need to go and get your CPA certificate. So it was him. It was some guy, another guy that was working at the state auditor's office at the time. I told him, I said, you're going nowhere fast at the state auditor's office. Nothing against the state auditor's office. I just think what you need to do is get your certificate, and then that road is going to widen. And so I say all that to say the counseling that I've done with folks. The other thing is I've always said that I want to treat people the way that I want to be treated. Okay? I want to be treated fairly. I haven't always been treated fairly, but I want to be treated fairly, so I try to treat you fairly. I don't want to look you in the eye 10 years from now and you say something behind my back, you did so-and-so to me 10 years ago or whatever. When I see you 10 years from now, I want to be able to shake your hand, look you in the eye, and you say, yep, you are the same way now than you were then. Okay? And then the last thing I like to say, and I tell my grandchildren this all the time. I told them when they were home not for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. I asked each one of them, I said, how'd you do in school? Well, I made this A's, I made this many B's, this, that, and that. I said, I don't want to know the grade. I said, let me ask you one question, and just answer this one question. Did you do the best as you can that you could do? So they thought about it. One of them said, yeah. The other one said, no. And I said, regardless of what grade you make, if you did not do the best that you could do, you left something on the table. If you made an A+, but you did not do the best that you could do, you left something on the table. If you made a D or a C, and that was the best that you could do, I can't ask me anymore. I mean, if you've done the best that you can you ask me anymore? At least I don't think you can. And so those are the things that I kind of think about, and I try to impart upon folks, young folks. And if my brother was here, Dr. Thaddeus John Bell, Closing the Gap in Healthcare, he would tell you, for young folks, you need to take care of yourself. You need to think about your health You need to exercise. You need to take care of yourself. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, but I'll just tell you that because I know that's what he would say. So,
I'm gonna add something here that, and I don't think Gary even knows this, but I'm gonna share it today. There were two gentlemen that impacted me a lot in my life. One, he's no longer with us. His name is James Garrett. He lived directly across from me in Saxon Homes. James could get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, stand on top of the hill, because I lived above the swimming pool in Saxon Home. And he would drive a golf ball to the baseball field. Asa would run and get that ball and bring it back to James. I thought so much of him. The second person was Thad Bell. I spent 15 years in Charleston. Thad, I thought, was just the epitome of a young man that was trying to make it. And I used to look at Thad. I'd go down to the pharmacy where he'd be, and I would just stand and look at him, and I would just say to myself, if I could, only if I could. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Thad gave me the application to Mahara. He said, Asa, if you want to do it, you can do it. You can do it. But I have always admired Thad Bell, and I don't think Thad even knows just how much I respect him and how I looked up to him. But those two men, they had the greatest impact in my life of any young man that I could ever think of. Garrett was an outstanding athlete. I think he ended up going to the University of Minnesota.
nope, Michigan State.
Michigan State, first black, you know. And Thad was just the man. But, you know, Gary's made some very strong points, and I can only piggyback. But when I think about my life and what has happened and where I've come from, it's just amazing to me that you can do it if you put your mind to it. You can do it.
I want to say, I know we're getting too close to the end, but I want to say this right here too. I would be remiss if I did not say this. Number one, I look back on my life, and I don't think that I could have done some of the things that I've done in my life, professionally or otherwise, if it hadn't been for my wife. Okay. Now, but the other thing I want to say is that I just want to put a shout out to my kids, because I was hard on them kids. Those three kids, I was hard on them. And I like to say that right now, you know, the oldest one is in Tennessee. The other one is in Utah, and then my daughter. And they are in a profession. I told them it took 3 of them to go and to do all the stuff that I've done, because listen, this is how I phrase it, basically. But I'm a CPA, like I said, and I want to be a certified. I'm not a certified financial planner, but I used to help people do financial planning. So my oldest son is a certified financial planner. I was in the Army. The highest rank that I could get was a captain. My next son is a major general. Okay. I was in the Corps of Engineers. I told you that, right? My daughter, you know, got a master's in engineering. So each one of them took a little bit of, that's the way I look at it. It took 3 of them to do all the stuff that I did. So that's all I'm going to say for
That's
that.
tough.
As we come to a close, I truly do want to thank you for allowing us to have a review of your lives. Rarely can we celebrate our heroes. I repeatedly say that, but I do celebrate you today. We celebrate you today from a community perspective, from a fraternal perspective, as men and as people that are still climbing that hill, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts and the depths of our soul. We thank you for the ground that you have cleared for us to be better. You spoke about your kids, you spoke about your wives, you spoke about your communities. With all those things, I want to take the time to thank you for giving us the tools and showing us how to use them. And we pray that we're able to do what you see us doing and continue to pass on the traditions of good men. Thank you again, Tom.
You're welcome. Now, we off camera now. You know, Asa was fast at high school.